some malicious apps have been discovered on the Google Play Store.
So John, you bring us a story about some malicious apps that ended up in the actual Google Play Store?
Yeah, so this actually happens more than you probably hear about. I know we've done some analysis in the past of malicious apps and whatnot that have managed to get their way into the official Google Play Store. This is a particular, I guess it's a little bit interesting because this story is around a group called Sidewinder. That is an advanced persistent threat group that has been mostly targeting Pakistan or Pakistani military in the past. Somehow they've attributed, well, I know how they've attributed to it. We'll get to that in a second. But the long and short is there were 3 apps they've discovered in the Google Play Store that use a kind of zero-day vulnerability that was reported by the Google Threat Analysis Group, TAG, Google's TAG project, where they go and they analyze stuff. So they discovered this, I want to say October maybe of last year, the Google TAG team, this vulnerability.
No, the apps, the vulnerabilities.
Yeah, just the vulnerability.
Got it.
So now Trend Micro has discovered that there's some apps, these 3 apps that have this vulnerability. At the time of this article being written, Google's removed them from the Play Store, so that's good. But the interesting thing is that these apps have been on the Google Play Store since March, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, since March of 2019.
Yeah.
So way before the vulnerability was announced and discovered by the Google Threat Analysis team, this app had actually been there. Now, whether or not the vulnerability was being leveraged all the way back in March or not, it's hard to say, because I don't know if they have a history of the old apps that, if it changed over time and whatnot, which, tends to happen with apps. They get updated and whatnot. So, the interesting thing about this to me is that it's leveraging this vulnerability, which is a privilege escalation vulnerability, in order to gain basically root level privileges on your Android device. Right. And then it can do all kinds of interesting things. And they've enumerated all the different things it can do, like collect all of your browsing history, all of your Twitter, email, all that stuff, location, files on the device, camera, screenshots. That'll collect whatever it needs to up and send it up to a command and control server. And it does that encrypted. The reason they're attributing this to the Sidewinder group is because the command and control servers that the data is getting shuttled to from the infected devices has been previously associated with the Sidewinder group. Okay. So that's probably strong enough, although there are cases that I've observed in the past of other activity where more than one actor uses a command and control server or a site just because they're widely vulnerable to the world in general, and sometimes they just get repurposed by lots of different people. I'm not saying that that's what's happening here, but it could be, that's why they're attributing.
Attribution
it's tricky.
Is very difficult. Just by installing it, they could already do things on your phone without you knowing from an official store. So, it's a bit scary to know that that's what was going on. So just always be careful when you install something, and that applies to any operating system, now in this case, Android.
A lot of times we talk about mobile devices and don't sideload apps, from unknown app stores, because that would be dangerous. But in this case, this is the Google Play Store, the official Play Store, and there are a lot of actors who try to insert their malicious apps into the Play Store and keep them kind of under wraps as long as they can and coerce people into getting to download them. I know I did some analysis, I want to say maybe 1 or 2 years ago. There was a group that was making a lot of rogue fake apps for Android that looked like legitimate games. So they tried to make themselves look like other really popular games, but free, so you didn't have to pay for them, and they would put them up on the App Store and try to lure people to download them, and then it would turn your device into a proxy that they could use for proxying malicious traffic and whatnot. So
my wife downloaded an app for like yoga and meditation, but it was just a wrapper of YouTube searches. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Interesting.
I'm like, I don't know what that app was doing, but it was removed immediately. But it was literally just links to YouTube videos that were embedded within the app that were just about that topic. And
Right. So it wasn't really.
So who?
Didn't
I
have
mean,
a lot of functionality.
there might be
a web page. It's basically a web page inside an app. Right?
There might have been a lot of those where, like, you know, they might wrap them in that way. But I mean, those. What kind of apps were they? Do you know?
Yeah, they actually did list. There were 3 of them, and there was one called Camro, I think, File Crypt Manager, and CallCam. So I would just recommend people go take a look to see whether or not they have these apps. I believe the Google Play or the Google can pull back apps nowadays. If you've installed them from the Play Store and they determine that it's malicious, that they can kind of revoke it from devices as they check in to do their updates. So they might have done that here. I'm not sure if they mentioned that.
So camera apps make sense because I was just thinking about how do they get access to storage, but I guess as a camera app you can ask permissions for your camera, for your storage, for device, and for everything, and you're like, of course it's a camera app, yes, right?
Right, however, this one's even, like, a lot of rogue apps actually ask you for permissions for those things. This one didn't need to.
Oh, I didn't know.
Because they're leveraging this zero-day vulnerability where they can escalate their privileges.
Without,
they don't even need to ask for privileges because the app itself is, you know, leveraging a vulnerability that allows them to basically take all the privileges without asking you.
Gotcha. All right.
So.
I missed that.
It makes it even worse.
Yes.
In that respect, because now you have no idea that it's, you know, got, you know, full access to your phone while it's running. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, great summary. One interesting detail: if you actually click down and look at the blog post actually from Trend Micro, they mention kind of how the apps get access to what command and control, and it looks like it's using actually some Google Play Store reporting mechanism, this apps conversion tracking. If you kind of click and drill down into it and kind of go down a rabbit hole, where they may actually been monitoring and getting events whenever someone was actually installing it, and that got reported back up to basically the their account on Google Play Store. So kind of an interesting way they're integrating with some of these native capabilities in the Play Store to install the applications.
Right. People shouldn't ever assume that all of the apps in the official Google Play Store or even the Apple iOS store, that they're all legitimate and safe. Usually they are, and both of them, both Google and Apple, do a really good job vetting and checking to make sure that no bad apps get distributed through there. But every now and then a few slip through. So just be careful about what apps you install. And I always say, kind of look at it. If only a handful of people have ever installed it, there might be something not cool about this app. Maybe it's not really the legitimate one, especially if it's something pretending to be something else.